Sylvia here. Now, we thought it would be good in Hollywell Church to have a little Bible story for all you children every day, especially for some of you who aren't even able to go to school. So today we're going to learn about Queen Esther, who was a character in the Bible. Here we go. Esther was a very beautiful Jewish girl, and her people had been taken away by force from their own land. So Esther lived in the land of Persia, which today we call Iran. Esther's mother and father were both dead, and she had been brought up by her uncle's son, a kind man called Mordecai. Ruling over Persia was the mighty King Ahasuerus. He had a wonderful palace in Shushan with white, green and blue curtains fastened with silver rings to marble pillars and rich marble floors coloured red, blue, white and black. Ahasuerus made a grand feast for all his princes and servants, and there was plenty of food and drink. And after 7 days of eating and drinking, you can imagine how full and how drunk they were, the king gave the order that Vashti, the queen, was to come from her rooms in the palace into the dining hall so that all the princes could admire her beauty. Tell the king I will not come, said Queen Vashti. King Ahasuerus was very angry with her. He and his advisers decided to punish Vashti. She was no longer to be the queen, and someone else was to be chosen to take her place. A notice was sent throughout the land. Any beautiful young girl who would like to become queen should come to the palace in Shushan, and the king would choose the one he liked best. Now many girls flocked to the royal palace, and among them was Esther, and she spent a whole year in the palace preparing to meet the king. Every day Mordecai walked past the courtyard of Esther's house to find out all was well, and eventually it was Esther's turn to go into the king. Imagine how nervous she must have been. But when he saw her, the king loved her more than anyone else. He put the royal crown on her head and made her the queen instead of Vashti. He made a great feast to her honour, but no one in the palace knew that she was a Jewish girl. Mordecai thought it was wise as she kept that secret, and Esther did as Mordecai asked. Now one day, Mordecai overheard 2 of the king's officers plotting to kill King Ahasuerus. And Mordecai told Esther, and she reported it to the king, giving Mordecai the credit. The report was investigated and found to be quite true. Both men were hanged, and the whole story was written in the royal book of records, and the king was very pleased with Mordecai. But the most important person in the king's service was a proud man called Haman. Every time he passed by, the people would bow down to him. Everyone except Mordecai. Mordecai was a Jew who bowed only to God. We too must worship only God and not allow anyone else to take his place. Haman was enraged by this insult. He was so angry, he wanted to get rid of all the Jews from the land, especially Mordecai. And wicked Haman made up a law that every Jewish person throughout the land, young and old, men, women and children, would be killed on a certain day 11 months later. The king agreed to the law, and copies of it were sent throughout the land. Now Mordecai heard the terrible news, and he put on coarse, rough garments instead of his own clothes. He put ashes on his head to show how sad he was, and he cried loudly and bitterly. And news was brought to Esther that her cousin was sitting outside the gate in a sorry state. Esther was very upset. She sent out some nice new clothes to Mordecai, but he refused to take them. Esther sent Hatach, her special servant, to find out what was Mordecai's problem. Mordecai told him all about Haman's wicked plot. He gave a copy of the law for Esther to see for herself. Perhaps Esther can plead with the king on behalf of her people, said Mordecai. How can I do that, thought Esther. No one is allowed into the king's presence without being asked. He has not asked me in for the last 30 days. So if Esther came into the king's presence and the king didn't hold out his scepter to her, she would die. But Mordecai urged Esther to think of something. Yes, you could be killed too, but who knows, you may have been queen just for such a time as this.